The sun hung low over the desert, bleeding golden light across the rippling dunes. Eli Sanders adjusted his camera, the leather strap digging into his shoulder, and squinted at the horizon. He had traveled far from the nearest town, chasing the promise of untouched wildlife and the thrill of photographing the uncharted. But as he looked at the endless waves of sand, a strange unease crept through him, like the desert itself was watching. "Eli, wait!" Mara's voice broke his concentration. She walked carefully over the scorching sand, her wide-brimmed hat shielding her eyes. "The villagers warned you. You shouldn't be here alone. The desert, it has secrets you can't see." Eli chuckled, tightening the strap of his backpack. "Secrets? I've photographed predators, sandstorms, you name it. I've survived it all. Desert legends don't scare me." Mara frowned. She had guided outsiders for years, and she had seen the desert swallow more than just wanderers' time. "This isn't a legend, Eli, not entirely. They call it the Skinwalker. Some say it's an old curse, some say it's a spirit that mimics humans and animals, but it's real. I've seen signs. Don't underestimate it." Eli smirked, shaking his head. "Stories to scare tourists. Besides, if it's out there, I'll capture it on camera. That'll make one hell of a story." They continued on, the wind whispering through the dunes like a dry voice carrying secrets. Mara's pace was steady, her eyes scanning every shifting shadow. Eli tried to focus on the camera, adjusting the lens for the last rays of light, but a sudden movement caught his attention, a ripple of sand in the distance, like something large moving against the wind. He blinked, and it was gone. "Did you see that?" Eli asked, pointing. Mara didn't look. "I warned you, keep your eyes open. The desert plays tricks on those who wander too far." Night fell faster than expected, and the temperature dropped sharply. They set up camp in a small hollow between two dunes, the only shelter from the bitter night wind. Eli unpacked his camera equipment, setting up a few night vision shots. Mara prepared a small fire, carefully stacking sticks without disturbing the natural surroundings. "You really think something like that, the Skinwalker, is out there tonight?" Eli asked, trying to keep the tone light, but his voice had an edge of uncertainty. "I know it is," Mara said softly. She didn't look at him. Her eyes scanned the horizon, where darkness seemed to twist unnaturally. It's patient, it watches, it knows fear. Eli laughed nervously. "Sounds like my kind of subject. I'll get a perfect shot and we'll leave." Hours passed. The desert was quiet, almost too quiet. The fire crackled, casting long flickering shadows that danced across the dunes. Eli fiddled with his camera, reviewing the photos from earlier, when a faint rustling sound made him freeze. "Did you hear that?" he whispered. Mara's eyes narrowed. "I told you, stay alert." They listened. At first it was subtle, like sand shifting against itself, but then came the unmistakable sound of footsteps, not one, but many, circling their camp. Footsteps that didn't match their own. Eli grabbed his flashlight and shined it towards the dunes. The beam caught something, a figure just beyond the firelight. It was hunched, moving unnaturally, its form shifting in the darkness. For a fleeting moment it looked like a man, but its movements were wrong, too fast, too fluid, like water sliding over rocks. Mara grabbed his arm. "Don't move too fast," she whispered. "If it sees you, it will test you." The figure froze, as if sensing their fear. Then it vanished into the night, leaving only the disturbed sand behind. Eli's heart raced. What is that?" Mara's voice was tight. "It's the Skinwalker, and now it knows you're here." They spent the rest of the night in tense silence, listening to the wind, to the occasional snap of a twig, to the shifting sands that seemed almost alive. Every shadow became a potential threat. Every gust of wind carried whispers that sounded almost like human voices. By dawn, exhaustion weighed on them both. Eli's skepticism had faded, replaced by a gnawing fear he couldn't shake. Mara packed their camp quickly, her movements sharp and precise. "We have to move," she said. "If we stay, it will strike. The Skinwalker makes no mistakes. It hunts the careless." As they trudged through the early morning dunes, Eli's camera beeped, an alert that one of his night shots had captured something. He pulled up the image, squinting in disbelief. The picture showed a shadowed figure crouched on a dune, staring directly at the camera. Its face was obscured, but the outline, it looked like him. Eli's blood ran cold. That can't be real." Mara didn't answer. Her eyes were fixed on the horizon, where the dunes twisted like waves in a storm. "It's real," she said quietly, "and it's following us." The desert, once a place of adventure and beauty, now felt like a trap. Every dune could hide the Skinwalker, every shadow could hold its gaze. And as they moved forward, a distant howl echoed across the barren land, a sound that chilled them to the bone. Not an animal, not human, something in between, something ancient and hungry. Eli tried to convince himself it was a coyote or the wind carrying strange noises, but deep down he knew Mara was right. Something was out there, something that could take the form of anything, anyone, even him, and it was patient. By the time they reached a rocky outcrop overlooking the desert plain, the sun was high. The wind had died down, but the silence was worse. It pressed against them like a living thing. Mara held up a hand. "Stop!" Eli froze. He felt it before he saw it, the sand shifting slightly at the edge of the rocks, too deliberate to be natural. A shadow moved there, and then another, and then the first figure took shape, standing tall and still, staring directly at them. The face was Eli's. The desert held its breath. And for the first time ever, Eli understood. The Skinwalker wasn't just a legend, it wasn't just a story, it was here, and it had claimed him as his next prey. Eli's heart pounded so hard he was sure the Skinwalker could hear it. He took a cautious step back, keeping his eyes fixed on the shadowed figure that mirrored his every movement. Mara gripped his arm, her fingers digging in, steadying him. "Don't move too fast," she whispered, her voice barely carrying over the eerie silence of the desert. "If it thinks it's seen fear, it will strike." The figure tilted its head, mimicking Eli exactly. The desert wind picked up, sweeping sand across the dunes in blinding sheets. When the swirling sand cleared, the figure was gone. Eli's first instinct was relief, but Mara's frown told him the danger had only grown. "It can be anywhere," Mara said, "anywhere. The Skinwalker doesn't follow the rules of this world. It can be an animal, a shadow, even a person you trust." They pressed onward, navigating the dunes with careful, measured steps. Eli's camera hung from his neck, but he barely noticed it. The thrill of a perfect shot was gone, replaced by a gnawing fear he couldn't escape. Every sound, the snap of a branch, the skittering of a lizard, the whisper of the wind made him jump. Hours passed, and the desert seemed to close in around them. Footprints that were clearly not theirs appeared beside their path, sometimes human, sometimes animal, and sometimes unrecognizable, as if the very sand had twisted into shapes that mocked them. Eli's stomach churned. "See that?" Mara pointed to a series of prints that vanished mid-dune, as though swallowed by the desert itself. "It's toying with us. The Skinwalker likes to play before it hunts. It's sadistic." Eli swallowed hard. "Why me? Why us?" Mara shook her head. "It doesn't choose lightly. It chooses anyone who dares disturb this land, anyone who disrespects its silence. And once it starts, it doesn't stop." The sun sank lower, bleeding a crimson hue across the dunes. Shadows stretched and shifted unnaturally, twisting like serpents over the sand. They set up camp for the night, but sleep was impossible. Every shadow seemed alive. Every gust of wind sounded like whispers calling their names. Around midnight, Eli awoke to the sound of movement outside the tent. His first thought was Mara, but she was sound asleep, her steady breathing reassuring yet fragile. He unzipped the tent cautiously and aimed his flashlight toward the sand. The beam caught movement, a small figure crouched on a nearby dune. It was a coyote, but something was wrong. Its eyes glowed unnaturally, and its movements were too precise, almost human. Then it changed. Its body stretched unnaturally, and before Eli could react, it shifted into the form of a man. Its face was his. Eli stumbled back, dropping the flashlight. "Eli!" Mara's voice screamed. He turned toward her, but she wasn't in the tent. Panic surged through him. The man, or whatever it was, smiled, a horrifying, toothy grin that mirrored Eli's own. Then it vanished into the darkness, leaving only the whisper of the wind and the disturbed sand behind. Mara returned, eyes wide. "It's testing you. Don't let it know fear controls you." Eli's hands trembled. It looked like me. How is that possible?" Mara's gaze hardened. "It's a Skinwalker. It can mimic anything it touches, any shape it sees. That's why it hunts. You don't know what's real anymore, and that's the trap. Don't trust your eyes. Don't trust your mind." They huddled together through the night, listening to the desert. Every sound became a potential threat. Hours felt like days, and when the first hint of dawn touched the dunes, the world seemed almost serene, too serene. But the desert never truly rested. By midday, they resumed their trek, but Eli noticed something terrifying. His own footsteps were moving out of sequence, as though they had a life of their own. They twisted, doubled back, and sometimes vanished entirely, leaving no trace behind. "They're following us," Eli whispered, voice trembling. "Even my footsteps. It's following me." Mara didn't respond. She scanned the horizon, her instincts telling her that the Skinwalker was near, just out of sight. "We need shelter," she said finally. "The canyon ahead has rocks we can use for cover, but it's a trap too. It's not safe anywhere, unsafe." The canyon walls rose like jagged teeth, and as they entered, Eli felt a chill that had nothing to do with the desert's heat. Shadows clung to the rocks, shifting unnaturally. He caught glimpses of movement in the corners of his eyes, a fox that stared too long, a figure in the shadows that vanished when he turned. "Stay close," Mara said. "It's here. It wants to separate us. That's its favorite trick. Keep talking. Keep moving. Don't stop." Hours passed in tense silence, broken only by the distant howl of something not quite human. Then it happened. A figure stepped out from the shadows, walking toward them. Its movements were slow, deliberate, and familiar. Eli's stomach dropped. It was Mara. No, not Mara, but a perfect copy. "Eli," it said, mimicking her voice, "come with me." Eli froze. Mara grabbed him, yanking him backward. "It's not real. Don't follow it. It's bait." The fake Mara smiled, tilting her head, and then vanished, leaving only Eli and the real Mara trembling in the canyon shadows. "We have to keep moving," Mara said. "We can't stop. It's learning. It's adapting. The longer we stay, the stronger it becomes." They scrambled through narrow paths, rocks scraping their hands and legs. The Skinwalker's presence was felt everywhere. The whisper of wind against a wall sounded like Eli's own voice calling his name. A lizard scuttled across the sand, but its eyes glowed like fire. A distant shadow moved, and Eli caught a flash of himself reflected in the rock, even though he wasn't looking in that direction. Panic threatened to consume him, but Mara's steady grip and unwavering voice kept him going. "We survived together. It can't take us if we don't let it separate us." As the sun dipped below the horizon, the canyon darkened, and the Skinwalker's hunt escalated. Shapes shifted in the darkness, figures of people they knew, animals they had seen, even themselves. Eli realized with terror that they weren't just hunting, they were part of its game. Every step, every sound, every blink of an eye was being watched, catalogued, and twisted into a weapon against them. And in the deepest shadows, just beyond the edge of the firelight, the Skinwalker waited, patient and relentless. By the time they finally stopped, hidden in a small alcove, Eli's mind was fraying. He clutched his camera, not for photographs now, but for a lifeline, a tether to reality. Mara's eyes were hard, focused. "We can't survive much longer without a plan. It's not just hunting us, it's learning us, and soon it will know us better than we know ourselves." Eli swallowed the lump in his throat, the desert wind howling around them. The Skinwalker's patience was terrifying, and he understood for the first time the full weight of Mara's warnings. The desert was alive, and they were its prey. The hunt had begun. Night had fallen like a shroud over the canyon. Shadows stretched and twisted against the jagged walls, moving in ways that defied the natural laws of light. Eli's breath came in shallow gasps, his eyes darting across the darkness. Every instinct screamed that something was watching, tracking their every movement. Mara moved ahead, her steps quiet but purposeful. She carried a small satchel, its contents rattling faintly with each step. "Stay close," she whispered, her voice steady despite the palpable fear. "We can't let it separate us. That's how it kills." Eli swallowed hard. I don't understand. How is it doing this? It's not human. It shouldn't be able to move like that, think like that." Mara didn't answer. She had seen the Skinwalker before, in fleeting moments that would haunt her forever. The creature was not bound by flesh, nor by morality. It was an ancient predator, patient and cunning, capable of mimicking anyone or anything it chose. It had learned to stalk them, using fear as both weapon and shield. A sudden rustling made them freeze. A coyote? Perhaps, but the eyes glowed unnaturally bright in the moonlight. It crouched low, then stretched, its body elongating until it resembled a man. No, Eli, just like before. Its face was a perfect copy of his own, every feature twisted into a grotesque mockery. "Eli," Mara hissed, pulling him backward. "It's testing you again. Don't engage." The figure tilted its head, mirroring his every movement. Then it disappeared, leaving only the disturbed sand in its wake. Eli's stomach churned. Why does it keep copying me? Mara's eyes were sharp, scanning the canyon walls. Because it learns. The more it knows you, the more terrifying it becomes. That's how it hunts. That's how it kills. They moved through the canyon, navigating narrow paths and jagged rocks. Every step felt like a trap. The Skinwalker didn't just stalk, it manipulated the environment. Sand dunes shifted overnight, erasing footprints. Rocks fell where they hadn't been before. Even the wind seemed to carry whispers. Eli swore he could hear his own name. Suddenly, a scream shattered the night. It wasn't human, not entirely. It was a sound that clawed at their nerves, piercing the silence. Mara grabbed Eli, dragging him behind a boulder as shadows flitted across the canyon floor. "It's close," she whispered, her hand shaking slightly despite her resolve. "We can't let it separate us. If it isolates you, it'll take you first." Eli's heart raced. "We can't keep running forever. We have to fight or trap it somehow." Mara nodded, her eyes scanning the rock walls. "There's something here, ancient markings, glyphs etched into the canyon stone. They speak of a ritual, a trap. If we can lure it into the right spot, we might be able to stop it, or at least drive it back." Eli followed her, nerves on edge. The Skinwalker's presence was overwhelming, a pressure that seemed to weigh down the air itself. Shapes moved in the corners of his vision, a snake slithering across rocks, a shadow that looked like Mara, then vanished when he turned. "Look!" Mara pointed to a section of the canyon wall. Faint, weathered carvings glimmered in the moonlight, symbols of humans and animals intertwined, forming a circle with jagged lines radiating outward. "This is it. This is how we fight it. But it will require bait." Eli felt his stomach drop. "Bait? You mean me?" Mara's eyes were grim. "Someone has to draw it in. If we both run, it will follow. If one of us stays and lures it, the other can complete the ritual. It's the only way." Before Eli could respond, a chilling growl echoed through the canyon. Shapes began to move, dozens of them, shadows twisting into forms of friends, villagers, animals, and worst of all, themselves. The Skinwalker had learned their faces, their voices. It mocked them with every step. Eli swallowed hard. I'll do it. I'll bait it. You finish the ritual." Mara hesitated. "No, you don't understand. Once it senses fear, it will—" "I don't care. I'll face it. Just promise me you'll survive." Mara nodded reluctantly, tears brimming in her eyes. "Be careful. Remember, it's not just physical. It attacks the mind. Don't lose yourself." Eli moved ahead cautiously, each step deliberate. The Skinwalker's presence grew stronger, almost tangible. The sand shifted around him, forming shapes that mimicked his own movements. He could hear his voice, mocking, distorted, carried on the wind. Then it appeared, towering, fluid, and ever-changing. One moment it was a coyote, the next a villager, then his own face twisted into a horrifying grin. "Eli," Fran hissed, pulling him backward. "It's testing you again. Don't engage." The figure tilted its head, mirroring his every movement. Then it disappeared, leaving only the disturbed sand in its wake. Eli's stomach churned. "Why does it keep copying me?" Mara's eyes were sharp, scanning the canyon walls. "Because it learns. The more it knows you, the more terrifying it becomes. That's how it hunts. That's how it kills." They moved through the canyon, navigating narrow paths and jagged rocks. Every step felt like a trap. The Skinwalker didn't just stalk, it manipulated the environment. Sand dunes shifted overnight, erasing footprints. Rocks fell where they hadn't been before. Even the wind seemed to carry whispers. Eli swore he could hear his own name. Suddenly, a scream shattered the night. It wasn't human, not entirely. It was a sound that clawed at their nerves, piercing the silence. Mara grabbed Eli, dragging him behind a boulder as shadows flitted across the canyon floor. "It's close," she whispered, her hand shaking slightly despite her resolve. "We can't let it separate us. If it isolates you, it'll take you first." Eli's heart raced. "We can't keep running forever. We have to fight or trap it somehow." Mara nodded, her eyes scanning the rock walls. "There's something here, ancient markings, glyphs etched into the canyon stone. They speak of a ritual, a trap. If we can lure it into the right spot, we might be able to stop it, or at least drive it back." Eli followed her, nerves on edge. The Skinwalker's presence was overwhelming, a pressure that seemed to weigh down the air itself. Shapes moved in the corners of his vision, a snake slithering across rocks, a shadow that looked like Mara, then vanished when he turned. "Look!" Mara pointed to a section of the canyon wall. Faint, weathered carvings glimmered in the moonlight, symbols of humans and animals intertwined, forming a circle with jagged lines radiating outward. "This is it. This is how we fight it. But it will require bait." Eli felt his stomach drop. "Bait? You mean me?" Mara's eyes were grim. "Someone has to draw it in. If we both run, it will follow. If one of us stays and lures it, the other can complete the ritual. It's the only way." Before Eli could respond, a chilling growl echoed through the canyon. Shapes began to move, dozens of them, shadows twisting into forms of friends, villagers, animals, and worst of all, themselves. The Skinwalker had learned their faces, their voices. It mocked them with every step. Eli swallowed hard. I'll do it. I'll bait it. You finish the ritual." Mara hesitated. "No, you don't understand. Once it senses fear, it will—" "I don't care. I'll face it. Just promise me you'll survive." Mara nodded reluctantly, tears brimming in her eyes. "Be careful. Remember, it's not just physical. It attacks the mind. Don't lose yourself." Eli moved ahead cautiously, each step deliberate. The Skinwalker's presence grew stronger, almost tangible. The sand shifted around him, forming shapes that mimicked his own movements. He could hear his voice, mocking, distorted, carried on the wind. Then it appeared, towering, fluid, and ever-changing. One moment it was a coyote, the next a The dawn light stretched across the canyon like molten gold, softening the jagged shadows that had haunted Eli and Mara through the night. For a moment, the desert seemed at peace. Birds chirped in the distance, the wind whispered gently through the rocks, and the oppressive weight of the previous night's terror lifted slightly. But both Mara and Eli knew better. The calm was a trap, a deceptive veil over the desert's true nature. The Skinwalker was not gone. It had retreated, but it had not forgotten. Mara crouched beside Eli, checking the supplies she had brought for the ritual. "We need to finish this now," she said, her voice low and urgent. "It will regroup. If we don't seal it properly, it will return stronger, and this time it won't hesitate." Eli rubbed his temples, exhaustion weighing on him. "I didn't think surviving it would be this Mentally draining. I thought it was just physical danger, but it's like it gets inside your head. Mara nodded grimly. It feeds on fear, Eli. The more you doubt yourself, the stronger it becomes. That's why we need the ritual, and why someone has to bait it while the other completes it. He flinched at the words, bait. He knew he couldn't ask Mara to do it. "I'll do it again," he said quietly. "I'll lure it. You finish the ritual. We survive together." Mara shook her head. "No, Eli. If you do that, you might... I don't know if you'll come back, but if I do it, we have a chance. Someone has to face it directly. That's how the glyphs work. It needs a target. It needs fear to anchor itself. The ritual alone won't hold it unless it strikes." Eli's chest tightened. He understood. Someone had to confront the Skinwalker fully. Someone had to risk everything. And in his mind, the choice was clear. "I'll face it," he said, voice steady despite the fear gnawing at him. "It won't take Mara, not if I can help it." Mara's eyes glistened. She reached out, brushing a lock of sand-streaked hair from his forehead. "Be careful," she whispered. "Remember, it's not just the body. Don't let it break your mind." With that, Eli stepped into the open canyon floor, every muscle tensed. The desert wind swirled around him, carrying the faint echoes of footsteps, not his, but his reflection, his voice, his fear made manifest. He gripped his camera like a talisman, even though he knew it could do nothing against a creature this ancient and malevolent. The Skinwalker appeared almost immediately. It rose from the sand like a shadow come to life, its form shifting constantly, sometimes a coyote, sometimes a villager, sometimes Eli himself. Its eyes glowed a sickly amber, burning with intelligence and hunger. It circled him, moving faster than he could follow, a predator playing with its prey. Eli forced himself to remain calm, walking slowly toward the center of the ritual glyphs Mara had prepared. The symbol shimmered faintly in the morning light, almost pulsating with energy. He could feel the Skinwalker's gaze. Every shape it assumed, every form it took was designed to terrify him, to make him falter. It lunged. Eli ducked instinctively, feeling the rush of air as its claws, or were they hands, scraped against the sand. He stumbled to the center of the ritual glyph circle just as Mara began chanting again. The words were ancient, guttural, vibrating in the canyon as though the rocks themselves hummed in response. The Skinwalker screeched, a sound that made Eli's blood run cold. Its body twisted, taking the form of his worst fears. People he loved, people he had wronged, even his own face stretched into grotesque smiles. He blinked, forcing himself to focus on the ritual, to block out the hallucinations and the whispers of his own voice, urging him to flee. Mara's chanting grew louder, more commanding. The glyphs flared with light, creating a barrier around Eli. The Skinwalker struck, its form slamming against the invisible wall with bone-shattering force, then recoiling, twisting into a swirling mass of shadows and claws. Eli gritted his teeth and held his ground, refusing to let fear dominate him. The Skinwalker lunged again, its shape shifting mid-air from coyote to human to giant monstrous figure. Eli dodged, narrowly avoiding the strike, and felt the scorching heat of its anger as it slammed into the glyph circle, sending sparks flying. The creature screamed, a sound like metal tearing and voices wailing all at once. Eli felt his mind bend under the weight of the terror, his own fears projected and magnified by the Skinwalker's power. But he gritted his teeth, repeating Mara's words in his head, "Don't lose yourself." The glyphs responded. Light flared, cutting through the darkness of the creature's form. It recoiled violently, convulsing, twisting into impossible shapes as the ritual anchored it. The ground shook, sand flying into the air as the Skinwalker screeched, a sound that echoed across the canyon like the death cry of the desert itself. And then, with one final horrifying wail, the Skinwalker was gone. The shadows dissipated, leaving only the shifting sand and the silent, empty canyon. Eli fell to his knees, exhausted, trembling from head to toe. Mara rushed forward, enveloping him in a hug. "It's over," she whispered. Her eyes scanned the canyon, still wary, still alert. For now. Eli looked around, trying to make sense of the emptiness. The desert seemed calm, almost too calm. Did we do it?" he asked. Mara shook her head slowly. "We drove it back, yes, but it's patient. It waits. It's part of this land, part of the shadows, and if someone disturbs the desert again, it will return." They began walking toward the edge of the canyon, the morning sun illuminating the dunes in soft gold. But even as they moved, Eli couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching, that the Skinwalker hadn't truly left, that it had merely retreated, waiting for the moment to strike again. Weeks later, Mara visited the nearest town to warn the villagers and recount the tale. But when travelers passed through the desert months later, reports surfaced of strange footprints, of shadows that moved unnaturally, and whispers carried on the wind. One traveler even claimed to see a figure, tall, fluid, and unsettlingly familiar, emerge from the dunes, only to vanish moments later. And in the middle of the desert, where the glyphs had once burned with protective light, a new set of footprints appeared overnight. One set was unmistakably Eli's, and for a fleeting second it seemed to move on its own, leaving the others behind. The desert had reclaimed its silence. The shadows waited. The Skinwalker, or something darker, remained, patient and eternal, a reminder that some ancient horrors never truly end. Eli Sanders had survived the night, but whether he returned fully human or something else was a question no one would dare answer. The desert whispered on, and the hunt was never truly over.